Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah, happy Groundhog's Day. How did that ever get to be a holiday? Seriously. Is it Groundhog Day? Seems to be just Phil. Or is it groundhogs? Is it a day when we celebrate groundhogs? What the hell is it? I just, you do know that the thing I'm proudest of, I've told you this, so I'm sorry. This is what happens when you've been on too long. Tell the same stories over and over again, but I am proud, and every Groundhog Day, I get to brag that I somehow managed to be a Pittsburgh television reporter, feature reporter, the exact job description for the poor souls who get sent to Punxsutawney to do the coverage of that poor animal being pulled out of whatever he's pulled out of. The whole thing. I still really not quite sure how I pulled it off, but I managed to never cover it. Never cover it. I don't know how I did it. I think because I tend to be pretty out there about how I'm feeling about anything, I'm sure I voiced my contempt for the entire exercise, the absurd holiday. I understand that, countries have silly holidays. Name another silly holiday. I mean, this is a flat out silly. It's not a national holiday. Nobody gets the day off. But I managed to. I think they were fearful. The authorities at WTAE-TV, I think they were fearful of sending me because, first of all, you'd have to get up really early. And so I'd be in a foul mood on top of the foul mood of having to cover this stupid thing. And then you got to schlep, you got to drive. My God, I would have had to get up, I can't imagine when, 3 a.m. or something. And I think they knew what I would do. Because how could you not make fun of the whole thing? I mean, it would have been I could have done a very funny feature report, but it wasn't going to be what you're supposed to do, which is treat it as if this were somehow legitimate. I don't know. I pity every reporter who ever has to cover this absurdity. By the way, it shouldn't be a surprise to you because we have blue sky again here in Pittsburgh today, February 2nd. And they did in Punxsutawney as well. So, the groundhog saw his shadow, which means, apparently, we will endure 6 more weeks of winter. The National Weather Service, by the way, put out a tweet saying that they've been tracking Phil's prognostications, and they say Phil has a 40% accuracy rate predicting the weather for the next 6 weeks. Now, all right, I'll stop. It's just a friggin' waste of Does anybody find it cute anymore? I mean, I just don't even understand it. And then I wonder what impact the movie, which was a good movie, had on ensuring that it was going to forever ever be this ongoing absurdity that reporters in the vicinity will spend sleepless nights trying to avoid. I don't know. Oh. I mean, you look at a calendar, 6 weeks from now is what? Middle of March? Well, sure, it's going to be winter between now and the middle of March. But the whole thing is insane. God. An actual time on newscasts will go today. Well, what am I doing? I'm doing the same thing. Okay, I'll stop. I think I just wanted to bring it up to brag again about having pulled off the most amazing feat in Pittsburgh journalistic history. Yes, indeed. Never having covered it. I've never even set foot in Punxsutawney. So, there you go. Boy. Guys, I think today is going to be sort of like a grab bag end of the week kind of show, because I end up by the end of the week, and Thursday is the end of the week, I end up with stuff that I've wanted to talk about and send your way for whatever it's worth. And I end up with these pieces I've never gotten to for some reason. And so what I have today is a bunch of unrelated, well, somewhat, some of them are, I suppose, can be put in little categories. I'm not into categories, but we can try it. The best thing I saw in my reading today was a Nickolas Kristof piece. Nickolas Kristof, remember him? Now, what's interesting is, did the New York, Nickolas Kristof was a opinion writer for the New York Times, very good. And then he resigned to run for governor of, let me think, his home state of, was it Oregon? And he gets to Oregon and they tell him he can't. I think it was something about residency or something, but he's such a bright fellow. Wouldn't he have? I don't know. So I wasn't sure if if the New York Times took him back or what, because I don't know that I've seen him much, but he does have a piece in the New York Times today, as he used to. And it does say columnist next to him, so I guess he's back. But it's a wonderful piece. And the reason it's a wonderful piece is because it agrees totally with me. Brilliant. As you know, I've been fulminating for some time about the woke folk, the ultra woke folk on the left, who have managed to turn off a lot of people who would otherwise vote for Democrats, and who instead run to the embrace of the anti-woke Republicans. And thank God Kristof has come down on my side. No one would accuse him of not being progressive or humane. He's got a huge heart. You can see it in his writing. But he's got it right. This crap that the woke folk do with language is so alienating. And what's hysterical about it, as he explained so well, is that the intent of this language tinkering, Latinx from Latino stuff like that, that is, the impetus is to not leave anyone out, to be inclusive. And what it ends up doing is absolutely the opposite. It creates more categories by which people become more isolated and divided. And the thing I most hate about it is like the greatest gift you could give to the right-wing Republicans. Why did I say right-wing Republicans? Sorry. It's a gift because even I will never vote for a Republican in my life. Yeah. Even I find this stuff ridiculous. And I use the word ridiculous because this stuff invites ridicule. Invites ridicule. And ridicule, it's also stuff that is so immediately understood by anybody, any potential voter who doesn't want to deal with policy questions and stuff like that. But here's things like the word woman has essentially disappeared from the woke lexicon. There are no women anymore. In an effort to be inclusive, women have been disappeared. Women have gone missing. They have been replaced, and you know this, and this is what he goes into. It depends on who. The American Cancer Society has always recommended screenings for women, for cervical cancer, such as breast cancer, at certain ages and stuff. And if you look at the American Cancer Society's webpage, I don't think you find the word woman anymore. They use individuals with a cervix. The Centers for Disease Control has used the phrase breastfeeding people. And the Cleveland Clinic, they have some advice for people who menstruate. The contortions that are gone to avoid saying the word woman, which apparently, what? Offends somebody? No. The thing is, it leaves out. It leaves out trans men with uteruses. And I'm sorry about that, but they'll just have to suck it up. There's a whole lot more of us women than trans men with effing uteruses. And for all of us to be put through this nonsense, homeless. You can't say homeless people anymore. You have to say houseless. Because, a house is not a home. You have to make distinctions. Not as though I don't even know what they're thinking. And pretty soon they'll decide houseless isn't right. And I've made fun of LGBTQ forever. And in fact, I've given up because there are those who use LGBTQIA2S. Don't even ask. One thing, I don't even have the answer. The word breastfeeding it's now called chest feeding by those who are better people than you and me. I saw a sign when I was walking my dog earlier this year, and it said something about stand with AAPI. Stand with the, and I thought, what's that? Is that an organization? And I realized later, I guess from other context of the sign, oh, that's Asian American and Pacific Islander, right? Is that what that is? Because you can't have those Pacific Islanders feeling left out. So instead of ever saying Asian American, you have to say AAPI. And I found a new one today, AFAB. I'm an AFAB, AFAB. It's another way to get around from saying woman. And the term AFAB, again, is used by the Cleveland Clinic, who also, of course, used people who menstruate instead of saying woman in another part of their handouts, their pamphlets, their information they put out. The Cleveland Clinic says this: who has a vagina? People who are assigned female at birth, AFAB, AFABs. People who are assigned female at birth, AFABs, have vaginas. BIPOC. Come on. What is it? I actually got it wrong. I thought it was bisexual people of color. Doesn't that make sense? BIPOC. That's all over the place. And from Kristof's column today, I found out I was wrong. It's not about bisexual. Is that still a term we can use? Bisexual people of color. It stands for instead Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The point Kristof makes in this piece is not only that this just is, again, ripe for ridicule, but it's hurting the Democratic Party. There is no reason for this. It's insane. And as I said, the whole idea is supposedly to not alienate anybody, to not leave anybody out. So they end up leaving out more than half of the goddamn population of the earth. Excuse me, Ella. God. You can't make it up. And here's where Kristof really gets it right. He quotes somebody else who says, this stuff exacerbates division. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't accomplish a damn thing that helps anybody. It is pure performance. There's no substance. And what Kristof says, instead of actually doing something for, in other words, people who don't have a home, a house, whatever, he points out that the people who use these terms, who would never say homeless anymore, oh, I think houseless is better. You don't want to offend these poor people. He points out, where are most homeless people? Well, I'll tell you where you're going to find a whole bunch of them. The blue cities on the West Coast. There's so many homeless people, houseless people in the blue cities on the West Coast that it's appalling. And it's a genuine crisis, I think. And Kristof points out that all these poor souls are often sensitively described as people experiencing homelessness. These progressive areas on the left coast have some of the highest concentrations of, call it whatever you want, unsheltered people with vaginas. I don't know. But Kristof says, hey, how about worrying less about jargon and more about zoning and other evidence-based policies that could actually get people more housing? Unbelievable. So he ends his very well done tirade saying, I fear that our linguistic contortions, however well meant, are not actually addressing our country's desperate inequities or achieving anything other than creating fuel for right-wing fanatics, he doesn't say that, aiming to take the country in the opposite direction. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't have a clue. All right, so oh, I know. This is one of the things that's been in my grab bag for a long time. I'm meaning to get it in. It's exactly on this subject. Jonathan sent me this some time ago. I had seen it too. Why aren't I finding it? It's, I believe it was the university. I don't know. It's a number of universities, right, who have now decided that the term, I think this is what, in sociology courses. And for some reason, I can't find it now. They no longer will use the word, social workers, people studying social work go out and they do field work. That's what it's called. The word field has been relegated to the offensive column. The word field. To do field work, come on, you got it, right? You understand why you can't say it anymore? Because to do field work, especially if the person is a person of color, suggests they're being sent off, to the cotton fields. It conjures images of slavery. And so that's what's happening in the universities. Michigan, The Michigan Department of Health has banned field. University of Southern California, as it has racist connotations. Somebody better tell Major League Baseball, because I don't know if anyone's going to want, especially a person of color, want to be in left field or right or center field. This is the kind of stuff that makes anyone with a brain go berserk. And it's got to be attacked head on and not acquiesced to. Ray has brought up George Orwell. You know, I have the book right here. I mean, I have a book from college. How many college books do you have that you still like sort of treasure? This is one I have. I'm trying to see it, and I can't. But it's a compilation of essays. One of the essays is by George Orwell, and it's about language and the power of language. And it's something, obviously, that Orwell, I mean, it was one of the sort of central focuses of his writing. And Ray sends this quote from Orwell: "There is no swifter route to the corruption of thought than through the corruption of language." Yeah. This is truth. Manipulation of language. And it's what autocrats always try to do. It's what anybody who's attempting to, and I'm sorry, I have said this over. I don't care if it's coming from the right or the left. People who start telling me what I can say are people I am going to stand against. Ray points out, and it's true with this crowd, there is no compromise or compassionate acts that will satisfy them. If they lost me, and I think they have, right? They've lost me. They have lost many, I mean, millions probably of what used to be the Democratic base. Ray says, we decry the anti-science climate deniers, but embrace the anti-science biology deniers. Well, I can't. I can't anymore. And you know I can't. Geez, Barbara sent the word of the day. What? Repristinate. I never heard of it. Repristinate. It's a verb, yeah. To restore to the first or original state of condition. Well, I think we need to repristinate some of these poor words. Like woman. I think I'll put out a sign saying, repristinate women. That ought to start quite a flurry of activity. Yesterday, our caller decried the lack of civility evidence. I can't remember quite what we were talking about. That people, inappropriate behavior, that people have no clue how to behave in a what used to be considered, I mean, was just sort of universally acknowledged as appropriate behavior. And we were wondering, I said, I think this is generation, it's more than a generation now that this has been going on. So you have people who were not taught any of this, who have become parents themselves and obviously haven't taught their offspring, and it just has grown by leaps and bounds and truly blown up by social networking, what am I trying to say? The internet. And screaming is not going to help anything. Well, today I read about a guy in Vermont who's dead. And he died because he was part of a brawl that occurred at a middle school, 7th and 8th grade basketball game. It was in the school gym. The referee says he has not a clue what even caused it. He said 1 minute there was a game going on. The next minute there were people on the court and just flat out brawl. And it was the people from it was the grown-ups. This one guy, one of the grown-ups, there's a word that could use some looking at. Like, what constitutes a grown-up? Is it simply a matter of age? Because I give you, for instance, Donald Trump. He's a grown-up. But he doesn't exhibit in any way right? I mean, so I don't know that people should be able to be called grown-ups if their behavior doesn't evidence that they have, in fact, grown up. So this Russell Giroux is dead. He was in the scrum and left and wasn't feeling well, went to the hospital and dropped dead. So this kind of thing goes on all the time. Been to a Little League game lately? The school district put out a statement. We condemn the violence that occurred. We expect better. Fighting and violence are wholly inconsistent with the behaviors we encourage. We always seek to foster a positive learning environment. Yeah. Well, welcome to the culture of America. Oh, speaking of culture of America, oh my God. I read this article and I wish I hadn't. I read it in the New Yorker, and it was about one of the newest shows on television. Have you heard about it? It's called Power Slap. And it is really about two people slapping the hell out of each other. There's no defense. You have to stand with your arms behind your back while another person lets go with a slap to your face. People have died in these. It's now a television show on TNT, I believe. It has, in fact, this kind of thing has been given the okay by, I don't know, was it in the Las Vegas Gaming Commission, something like that. You know, the high standards there. show is hosted by the president of the UFC. The UFC being the ultimate, is it Ultimate Fight? You know, the people who've taken, I don't know. Who called it? I think John McCain, when he first saw it, some of this, I don't even know what they're called, these Ultimate Fighter things. He called it human cockfighting. That's absolutely right on. Human cockfighting. But what he called human cockfighting is now absolutely acceptable. It's a regular on ESPN. And Power Slap is part of this growing. I sometimes laugh about chess being covered in the sports section. I prefer chess being covered in the sports section more than this crap in the sports section. But apparently, some of this, I don't even want. You know what? I don't want to talk about it. It's beyond belief that this is what we've come to. Reality television. What else we got? Oh, this is something that I found. Something I found really interesting. I mean, not like overwhelmingly interesting, but stop and think. This is for those who know something about art. If you can conjure images of a Claude Monet a painting or a Joseph Turner painting. They lived, Turner was a little older than Monet, I think, but they both were living in Paris and London, and Monet spent quite a bit of time in London and did a lot of painting there as well. And the time they were painting was when the Industrial Revolution was in full force. And Monet, for one, has a very famous painting that he did in 1901 of a bridge in London called the Charing Cross Bridge. And if you've ever seen it, it's very it looks like there's this like sort of, it looks, you barely see, it's foggy. Everything is almost imperceptible. You're looking through, this. And what has been determined, and this is a study that was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And in the study, they looked at over 100 paintings done by the English painter Turner and Monet, known for their impressionistic art. And they determined that that picture that you're looking at that looks so ethereal and misty and is pollution. It's the pollution. And here in Pittsburgh, we endured this kind of pollution. When the Industrial Revolution was kicking off and nobody thought anything about all that crap spewing into the air, the skies that these two painters were looking at became more and more and more polluted. In their paintings, it doesn't come across as pollution. I never looking at those paintings, oh my God, look at that pollution. I instead thought of, natural, foggy London. And the study said that impressionistic painters were known to be exquisitely sensitive to changes in light, changes in the environment. And it wouldn't matter that the changes were natural or man-made. England was at the head of this new kind of pollution of the air. And it was responsible for emitting almost half of all the sulfur dioxide emissions in the world from 1800 to 1850. Way to go, UK! And so that's what you're looking at. And you'll look at, if you look at Monet or Turner paintings now, you'll look at it with a new eye. Wow. I have a caller. Hello.
Hello, this is Kurt in Swissvale.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Kurt.
Well, I don't know. You sound pretty grumpy today.
Do
I want to try and modify your thinking on this stuff a little bit, on the pronouns and style guides and things. Okay. Because there was right in the middle of all that, you respected Helen's wish that you try not to take the Lord in vain. And you didn't do that because anybody's forcing you to. It's because you recognize that language has power and it means things to different people. And you want to respect those people and their wishes, so you try.
That's right.
And nobody forces you to. And it's, I have used this as an example in a pronoun discussion. There's one trans woman friend of mine who, doesn't like to, is critical of people when they get upset when they're misgendered, other trans people. And I said, well, this language is important. I said, I remember when there was this new pronoun, or actually title, came around that was Ms. Exactly. I mean, what was that? It was to get people to respect the discrimination that existed and to acknowledge the importance of women's rights, and it carried a lot of messages with it. And people objected to it right and left because it's like, well, you're either married or you're not. I don't know what the big deal is. It's just a word. We've always used it, blah, 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 blah. But think about these kids in Florida that aren't allowed to discuss any gender nonconformity or sexual nonconformity in school. And then they hear an ad from the National Cancer Society that says people that need to be checked for uterine cancer are people that have a cervix. And then the kid asks, well, how come they say that instead of just saying women? And the answer has to be, well, because trans men who are men need to have this examination too. And so it gets that message out. I think, I know at least your sister does, but I think you acknowledge that trans men are entitled to be recognized as men and trans females are entitled to be recognized as females. But absolutely. If you don't use the language that makes them visible and acknowledges their existence, then silence is the voice of complicity in their oppression. If you just say, we should just say women need cervical exams, well, you're leaving them out, and you're leaving them out rather defiantly and deliberately. And when I think about that, I'm not very comfortable doing it.
What?
We used to be practicing
and leaving them out, though. But Kurt, you're not responding to the fact that the word woman has become a word you're not supposed to use. I'm a woman. What about leaving me out?
That's not leaving you out.
What?
It's saying
what?
You need a cancer exam is because you have a cervix. It's not because you're a woman.
Oh.
Because to say otherwise, and I would think most trans people are aware of the issues in their own health care, but
yes,
if you're a trans male and you hear only women need this, and you sit there in the quiet of your own home knowing, doggone well, you also need this exam, the language.
Well, then why not say women, and some trans men? You could. What's wrong with that?
Well, it'd be all trans men, but because the cervix.
Oh, they can't have their.
I don't think the cervix goes away.
You can remove your uterus, right?
Yeah.
But okay, women and trans men, and that makes more sense because women are by far, in terms of people with cervixes, women represent, I would say, what do you think, 98%, 99%? To somehow leave them out, it's absurd. Just to include.
It changes the way they're referred to. I mean, Liz doesn't leave out married women.
Wait. I didn't hear what you said.
I said Ms. doesn't leave out married women. I mean, that's sort of a Black Lives Matter, what about all the other lives argument.
Ms., which I would argue is still
it's inclusive.
It's inclusive, and yet most women don't use it. I don't think.
Oh.
I don't. I'd be interested in seeing. I use it on occasion, not all the time. Mostly, I don't use anything. I don't. If asked, on some form, for are you Ms. I usually, if you're able to not have anything, I don't have anything. But if pushed, I do Ms. Because my marital status is nobody's business.
Yeah.
Men don't go walking around with their marital status, in evidence. I don't know. It just seems to me that the more I hate categories. I hate them. And the more categories you create, the more you atomize humanity, the more division you create. You do not end up doing inclusion. You're trying to do inclusion, but you've got to also look at the reaction. And if it becomes that the intent is not doing the job, it's not bringing people together, it's dividing them, then maybe you need to rethink it a little bit. No?
Yeah, there's potential there, and I get it. And there's certainly pushback, and it's certainly capitalized on by the right. I mean, that
hugely.
They'll capitalize on it anyway. I mean, they'll still say that we're not liberals anymore like we were when Dukakis. Card-carrying liberals was Dukakis. There was a thing on NPR the other day they were trying to get people to define what woke meant. I said, woke doesn't mean anything. It means the same thing card-carrying liberal meant. It's just the new word that the right uses to disparage anybody they don't agree with. It doesn't actually.
Well, that's true. It's like, if you ask somebody, who uses woke and critical race theory, what those terms mean, they don't have a clue.
Yeah, it's just a pejorative.
It's the enemy, right?
Yeah.
I hear you, but I think I hope you hear that seeing what I am, which is a woman, disappearing, the word that as words go, that's the word. I'm a woman. And to see it made into something, well, you can't say that.
I don't think
has the word man been subject to the same stuff? Given trans women, I don't know.
I would imagine that if somebody were doing something about testicular cancer, well, I guess they people with testicles.
They would say people with testicles.
Yeah.
I bet it's nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you might be first. I can get some of that, but in terms of I get that there's going to be pushback, and some of this is going to fall away. I mean, I was in a political movement years ago, and we were, among other things, we were anti-men's violence, and we had.
How'd that go? How many inroads did you make with that, Kurt?
Well, maybe some. I mean, there were a lot of support for women's shelter movements and for anti-battering men's programs came out of that. But the silly thing that we had in one of the meetings was we shouldn't have bullet lists because bullets are violent, so we were going to have powder puffs. That obviously didn't stick. Bullet lists.
Oh, please! Yeah. Oh, God! You can see where this can just be endless.
Yeah, but
and
there's no need to react to it, though. That's what I'm really saying.
But people do. No, people do. I do. I don't like, as I said, I don't like people telling me what I can say. And I am a person of goodwill. I will, as if told that something I'm saying is offensive, I will try mightily to not offend. Not my intention to offend.
And the offending part's only half of it. Obviously, the other part is, like I said, if we join in changing the language to actually recognize that these minority lifestyles or personalities or whatever the right word is, because nobody's told me what the right word is. But if we all engage in that language, then it reaches everywhere, even places where specific.
Yeah, but what? A lot of this though is coming from sort of like white, very conscious white liberal types, or more than liberal types, and the term like Latinx. Have you seen the surveys that show that people who could be termed Latinx
don't like it?
Don't use it. They don't.
Yeah, I had the same feeling about this field thing, because I just thought to myself, my husband's black, and I just thought to myself, I can't imagine him or any other black person ever objecting to use the word field.
The word field.
Picking.
Well, pretty soon we'll be able to say you can't say cotton.
There had to be the creation of some hyper-reactionary white liberal. I understand that part. That's in the mix, but some of it, I take as a bit more legitimate than you do, I think.
Okay. And by the way, Ray has just sent me, he went to the American Prostate Cancer Foundation website. And it says, I'm looking at a sign here, and it says prostate cancer is the #1 cancer risk for men.
Okay.
As well as the #2 cancer killer. There's no mention of, yeah, people with testicles.
Well, maybe they'll get around to it. Well, or people with prostates.
Okay.
The trans females may not have testicles anymore, but they still got prostates.
Oh, God almighty, God help us. I don't know. Hey, you. Hey, wait. Why I have you here? Wait, I want to change the subject just a little bit because people don't know. Kurt sent me, after the show yesterday, I was asking people, what have I said that drives them crazy? And I didn't get a lot of feedback. And you did send me something. And you said, I
didn't like conflate. That word just, and it conflate. But I thought it was getting overused all over the place. It seemed like
conflate. Like I would say, use it in a sentence like I would have used it. I can't even think of using it, but I said I was on a jag using conflate, using conflate and using it incorrectly.
When I can't think of a specific example because you haven't really used it in a while, but some crazy idea that Trump had would conflate that with a real principle. So something.
Oh, okay.
It would conflate two dissimilar ideas, and you always seem to be. I thought you were overusing it for one thing. I thought it was getting overused a lot everywhere, but and it was usually around Trump policies that conflated the need for this with the reality of that, or I don't know. But it was always the misuse. I thought was it was usually used to say that it was a false equivalency. Yeah, it conflates these two ideas as a false equivalency, and the conflate sort of implied that it was necessarily false, which really isn't true. I mean, it could be falsely conflates or incorrectly conflates, but that part was usually getting left out.
Well, I think
driving me nuts.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw you a bone and give you a credit.
Well, I am not going to conflate anything with anything from now on. I know there are words that I must misuse, that I don't understand the true meaning of, and every once in a while someone will educate me or tell me, and I often I find it difficult if a word. My father used to use the word winsome incorrectly. And it used to drive. I don't know what would you say the definition of winsome is? That's a toughie. Would it be like? I want to say like sweet or no winsome. I don't know.
Yeah, the expression on a person having sweet thoughts or something. You'd be sitting winsomely under an apple tree in an open field or something.
Yeah, something like that. My dad always used it in terms of the word winning. He thought it meant something about winning. A very winsome, this or that. And I would just like, oh man, because he never used a one syllable word where a 40 syllable word would suffice. And but in some cases he was misusing them. And winsome is the one I always remember. What?
Well, let me tell you, you did use the word gab smocked the other day.
I did.
You did. And the thing that makes me chuckle, though, and I know you're running out of time, is a few days ago when you were talking about Kavanaugh. And Susan making references to him putting his unzipping his pants and slapping his junk in women's faces every chance he got.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I can't remember you can't say it's unbelievable, and you certainly can't say gobsmacked and that went right over your head, what she was suggesting there, that his actions, including actually gobsmacking someone. Which,
you know what? I don't.
She laughed, and I knew right by you.
And I'm sometimes clueless, right?
Yeah.
I'm clueless. So yeah, I can be very dense. It's true. Hey, Kurt, a pleasure, and thank you. Thank you for your call. Appreciate
Anytime.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye. Okay, so, geez, I'm not going to get around to a lot of the things in my grab bag. Oh, well, they'll have to wait. That's just the way it is, because we've run out of time. Okay, so all you gentlemen, ladies, and everybody in between, betwixt, and just in a general state of confusion, thanks for being with me, and I will return, as far as I know, on Monday. I hope you have a good interim. I don't even know if that makes sense.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.